Hey everybody, first of all, Happy New Year. It is January 1st, 2024. So, welcome to the first podcast of the new year for Horror Trans. This is the Horror Trans podcast, a companion podcast to the Horror Trans YouTube channel, where I talk about horror movies, and my tagline is I talk about all things horror. And I do horror reviews and horror icons and other things, but the podcast is for the types of video discussions that don't fit in my review format. So I got 3 topics today. These should be pretty beefy topics. Especially the first one should eat up a lot of time, I imagine. I might like forward through the second topic and just like get through it. We'll see. Um, However, yeah, I'm having a good day today so far. I just woke up 10 minutes ago, maybe thereabouts. I'm not fully awake yet, but I'm ready to do the show. So here I am. I've already had breakfast, so I woke up and had a piece of ham out of the refrigerator, sliced ham. It was good. So, some housekeeping before we get into the show. I want to start doing. I know it's popular for horror podcasts to do a section up front where they talk about what they've been watching or what they've added to the collection recently. So I'm going to try to remember to put that on the topic list and just make that my first topic. So last night I watched the 1997 B horror movie. Yes, it's a B movie. Jack Frost, about a serial killer who becomes a killer snowman. There is a horror trans review coming of this movie, no spoilers. But I watched it and I have thoughts. I took the month of December off from making horror trans reviews. I just did my first 2 reviews yesterday of the because it was the end of the month. I did 2 movies I watched specifically for to review. I watched The Purge, which I've already uploaded the review for that, so you can go check that out, and The Babadook. I have talked about elsewhere how I'm not like a giant fan of the term elevated horror, not necessarily the films that fall under the term, but I don't like that term because it sounds pretentious, and to me, it's reminiscent of when non-horror assholes used to call horror movies thrillers because they didn't want to be accused of watching a horror movie or liking a horror movie, because horror has this reputation that you have to be a psychopath or a degenerate to like it. And these pretentious assholes don't want to be described as degenerates. So they'll say, "Oh, that's not a horror movie, it's a thriller." Well, they've we've caught on to them, and we see through that now. So they've upped their game and invented the word elevated horror as a response to that. So now these assholes were like, "I don't like horror, I like elevated horror, excuse me." Yeah, fuck off. Why don't you put a stick of dynamite up your asshole and light it on fire, and then walk out to a crowd of your pretentious butthole buddies and do us a fucking favor. Thank you very much. God damn. But that being said, I have seen some of these movies that are labeled as elevated horror. So I have opinions on those, as well as the term elevated horror, which is a future topic because I'm gonna dig into it. I'm gonna peel back the skin off of this motherfucker and have me some fried chicken for breakfast. Cannibal style. Oh, fuck yeah. So this will segue into my first, oh, no, real quick. What have I added to the collection recently? One of the greatest fucking horror movies in the last 20 years. Evil Dead from 2013. I fucking love this movie. I saw it for the first time in April last year, 23. And I've already seen it 12 times, and I'm going to see it another 12 this year, if not more. I fucking love this movie. If you don't have it in your collection yet, what the fuck is wrong with you? Get it. It's like $5. Drop the $5 and get it in your collection. Okay? You can give up a couple of fucking rock stars and some Oreos for it. Well, I don't know about the Oreos. Whoa, it's going a little too far. But we can make sacrifices. Put this in your collection. All right, it's time to get into the meat and potatoes of the episode. We're starting off with horror franchises. Now, horror franchises are iffy on a couple of accounts. Actually, they're a lot more iffy than you realize. And the first iffy about the horror franchises, or the concept of horror franchises, is, believe it or not, it's very rare for a horror franchise to fall under the umbrella of a single production studio. Horror movies tend to be trailer park girls. Guys will date them for a while, take them out to dinner, make them feel nice, do the deed, leave her pregnant with 3 babies, triplets, and then move on to their real wife. And then the horror franchise has to find a new sugar daddy for, a couple of months. And just she gets passed around like I said, like trailer park trash. Because that's what horror is. Horror is trailer park trash. Let's be real. So are we. Most horror fans are trailer park trash as well. So whatever. We're used to it. It's whatever. So a lot of horror franchises will start out with one studio who doesn't believe in it but puts the money behind it because you got a slick talking car salesman for a director who's like, please, 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 with sugar on top, I promise there won't be tits in this one. And then there's, 16 tit shots. And they get the money anyways, and the movie gets made, and it's either a big hit or whatever. But then the movie studio says, you know what, we're getting a lot of backlash from this, we're washing our hands of it, and then they don't renew it. And then another studio says, fuck it, we'll take a chance. In most horror franchises, this will happen 2 or 3 times before the direct-to-video studios get their hands on it, and then you stop seeing theatrical releases in the franchise, and then it gets relegated either direct-to-video or direct-to-streaming, and then, then it's us, the cult of horror, keeping it alive somehow. Even though, the franchise stopped being good after part 4, we keep watching every one up to part 19, and we're like, okay, give us another one, and we still pretend to get excited for it, even though we haven't enjoyed it in 15, 16 years or more. We're still watching it because fuck it, we're hungry for horror. We'll just eat anything at this point. The other thing that's iffy about horror franchises is on lesser rare occasions, but it does happen, horror franchises change their name midway through the franchise. This does happen from time to time. Or they no longer believe in the franchise, so new movies will come out, but they won't have the titular name in the title. They'll have something else, either to hide the fact that it's a part of the horror franchise and it's a oops, we gotcha, haha. Or it's one of those, well, we couldn't get the rights to the name, but we got the rights to the mythos, so we're going to make do with what we got kind of deal. Because that happens too. And then the third thing that's kind of iffy about horror franchises is there's a lot of them that aren't really franchises. There's a movie, it gets a direct sequel, within a few years, 3 to 5 years, thereabouts. And then it ends. But those 2 movies were so good that they enter the pantheon themselves and become canon among horror fans. And you don't need a 3rd movie in the franchise. Those are rare. And on other rare occasions, 30 to 40 years later, some dipshit will be doing his taxes and he'll see a receipt for an IP he bought 20 years ago that he forgot he owned, and he'll be like, "Oh shit, I better cash in on this and make a direct-to-video sequel, requel, or what the fuck ever, 30, 40 years later," and yeah, then we get stuck with fucking bullshit requels, and it's like, oh, okay, fuck off, thank you very much. So that does happen from time to time as well, because the movie studios, either don't follow the horror media, social media and websites and news magazines and such, YouTube channels, and know that this movie has a following and there is an audience for a sequel, or they just don't give a shit because they're like, it's a fucking horror movie, we don't fucking care. Yeah, we can make a $5 million sequel and make $40 million, and that's technically a profit, but we want to spend $100 million on a movie that is going to make $20 million, and we're going to say, see, people still like superheroes, ha ha ha. Even though the math ain't fucking there, and the audience has already moved on. What I'm waiting to see are more superhero horror movies. And I don't mean rubbish like Hellraiser and Blade. I want to see like fucking, how they did that Archie Comics zombie apocalypse story a few years ago? I want to see that adapted to a movie. I want to see like the X-Men fighting like fucking vampires, and I want a good R-rated fucking horror movie with decapitations and blood and guts and tits and the whole shebang. But it's a fucking comic book a mainstream kid-friendly comic book property. That's what I want to see. So some of the highlights of horror franchises, some of the best ones. Halloween tends to get mentioned a lot. Halloween is one of those horror franchises that has more misses than hits. But when it hits hard enough that keeps the franchise going, even though the misses miss by 5 miles and everyone's like, ooh, I don't think I could ever watch another one of these again until the next one comes out. And you go into it like this. Oh my God, is this going to be good or not? And then you watch it and you either walk out of there like, yep, that's another one for the blog. Or you walk out of there and you're like, fuck yeah, that's how you do it. Some of the other horror franchises would be A Nightmare on Elm Street, which, believe it or not, is way more divisive than I thought it should be. Apparently, you have two camps in the Nightmare on Elm Street fandom. You have Camp A that thinks Freddy Krueger was never a clown and always a pedophile and should never tell jokes or be funny, and he should only be serious and scary and brooding, and therefore they only like 2 movies in the franchise and dismiss everything else. Or you got the people like me who were introduced to MTV Freddy, who just know for a fact in our hearts that he is the Freddy God intended, and enjoy the sequels because they fucking rock. So, yeah, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is kind of iffy. But Nightmare on Elm Street also happens to be one of the few that has stuck with the same studio its entire existence, including the remake. You can't say that about Halloween. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, I don't even know who the fuck owns the rights to Halloween anymore, or who's had it in the past, or what. A complete box set of the entire Halloween franchise is nigh impossible. You're not going to get 6 or 7 competing companies all come together to sell a box set and be friendly to consumers about it. You ain't. Another one that falls under the good example of a horror franchise is Friday the 13th. Again, it's got some hits and misses and a couple of duds, but by and large, the franchise as a whole is still enjoyable. There are no movies in the Friday the 13th franchise that are as god awful as some of those later Children of the Corn fucking flicks. I'll tell you that right now. At least all of the Friday the 13th are watchable. So there is that. Which brings me to the horror franchises that make you scratch your head and go, why the fuck are people still watching this shit? These are the shit, the rubbish, that had like one, maybe two okay or passable movies to begin with. And then the franchise fell off a cliff by part 3, which were, by then it was already direct-to-video. And we've just got 30 years of direct-to-video sequels that make you go, what the fuck who the fuck is watching this? This would be rubbish like Children of the Corn, fucking Puppet Master, the later Hellraiser movies. Just fucking dog shit. And then you have franchises that, like I said, you got the two, you know, you got the hit, the sequel, and then 30, 40 years later, or sometime later, 10, 15 years, whatever, you get the weird, out-of-place, distant cousin sequel, requel. So some examples of this would be The Ring. You had The Ring in 2002. You had The Ring 2, I believe, in 2003 or 4. And then, like, 15 years later, you had Rings. And by that point, it was like, what? Who's still passing around this murdering VHS tape at this point in time? No, thank you. I'll pass. You know. And another example of this would be I Know What You Did Last Summer. You had the first one, I believe, in 97 or 8. Then you had the sequel in like 2000. And then, you know, we got a satisfying ending. We moved on. We put it in the canon. We said, okay, that was good. And then out of the blue, we get this weird, fucked up what the fuck with I Know What You Did Last Summer, kind of, sort of, in the title. I'll always know what you did last summer. And it's like, this is the asshole who was doing his taxes and found the receipt to the IP in his tax returns. And is like, oh shit, I forgot I own this. I better make a fucking movie out of it. The flip side of that is the diehard fan who believes with all his heart in the passion, who is going around to studio with a script, just begging for a part 3 to get made. Please, sir, please, 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 please. And finally stumbles on this indie studio that makes, direct to streaming movies that says, you know what? We'll give it a shot. Why not? So that's the other way these weird-ass distant cousin sequels get made. And more often than not, they have fucking nothing at all to do with the previous movies. It's just a cash-in. It's a gotcha. It's a, hey, we're making a new movie in your beloved franchise, wink, wink. And then you watch it and you're like, you lying sack of shit. That's often what happens. Healthy franchises that stay with the studio, that keep the same director, that keep the same production company and the same actors and the same cast and crew are rare. However, they are not non-existent. The most popular, prominent example would be Scream, which up until recently has mostly stuck with the same people. Now, behind the scenes, Scream has moved home to home. So it went from Miramax, Dimension Films to whoever. I don't fucking give a shit. But the first 4 Scream movies were all directed by Wes Craven. They all starred the same cast. They had a lot of the same crew. They told a cohesive story. They were all interconnected. It worked. And then Spyglass got involved and flushed it down the toilet 2 months ago. So, thanks for that, assholes. Yeah, some of us are still bitter about that. And then you have those weird a full moon franchises and trauma and things like that started out direct to video, direct to VHS, direct to streaming, whatever, and somehow built a cult following and have just been going, off to the side, down the street, under the radar this whole time, and everyone's like, what the fuck? Where'd that come from? And then you find out there's like fucking 38 movies in the franchise, and then you're really like, how the hell does Full Moon Pictures stay in business? They're probably selling coke on the side, and they just don't want anyone to know. That's how they pay the bills. Let's be honest. Because they ain't fucking making any money off of those Species flicks. I'll tell you that right now. 4 people show up opening night to stream it on fucking Tubi. Yeah, right. That fucking studio ain't making a fucking dime. Don't try to tell me otherwise. I won't believe it. They're selling fucking illegal DVDs on the black market. They're fucking selling cocaine to drug dealers. They're into fucking Bitcoin, cryptocurrency bullshit. Their profits are not on the up and up. You will never convince me that fucking Full Moon Pictures makes money off of their rubbish. I don't care if that movie had a $50 budget. It didn't make $51 back. You're never going to convince me otherwise. So horror franchises run the gamut. They're all over the fucking place. Sometimes you get good ones like Child's Play / Chucky. And sometimes you get ones that are just incoherent messes like the Alien franchise. Which it's like, Jesus Christ, they don't even know how to name the goddamn things. Alien. Aliens. Alien 3. Alien Resurrection. Fuck it, Covenant. Fuck it, Prometheus. Fuck it, we don't care anymore. Predator has run into that in recent times as well, but I hesitate to call Predator a horror franchise. Sci-fi action, sure, but I don't know if I would call it horror. I'm not convinced. And the people who call it a slasher, I want to ask them have you ever seen a slasher? Predator is not a slasher. If you think Predator is a slasher, then you think Die Hard is a slasher. Fuck off. You don't know what a slasher is. I watch slasher movies. If a slasher movie exists, I've seen it, I've reviewed it, I got the special edition director's cut DVD in my closet. Predator ain't a slasher. Alright, moving on. This next topic I really am hesitant to talk about, but I have to. I've already reviewed a couple of movies in this genre on my channel, as uncomfortable as they were to watch. So, the question I'm asking is, are rape revenge movies a legit subgenre of horror? Or are they just pure smut? So we have to define rape revenge. A rape revenge movie is either a thriller, or a horror, or a drama, or some type of movie, genre hard to define sometimes, where a person, usually a girl but not always, gets raped, usually in a graphic, violent, brutal manner, but not always, and the victim of the rape spends the rest of the movie getting revenge on the people that raped him or her or them. So, the two most prominent examples are the two I want to talk about, because they're on opposite ends of this spectrum, which is why I want to talk about this. The first one you have is Wes Craven's The Last House on the Left, which I will argue, while it is absolutely, undeniably a rape revenge movie. It is also an art film and a legit horror movie. One of the scariest fucking movies I've ever seen. One of the most disturbing fucking movies I've ever seen. One of the reasons why I'm a fucking horror fan to begin with. So this is a point in the argument that yes, rape revenge movies can be legit. They can be art. They can be proper movies. But then you have I Spit on Your Grave, which is just a fucking porno. That's all it is. It's a goddamn porno. Where a guy gets his dick cut off, another guy gets hanged in a tree, and the other deaths are forgettable. I don't even fucking remember how they died. It was so fucking forgettable. This is smut. This is not a movie. This is a fucking porno. It doesn't belong on the shelf in your mom and pop rental store in the horror section. It belongs in the back room behind the curtain. This isn't a movie Netflix or Tubi or any respectable streaming service should ever touch with a 10-foot pole. This is a movie that RedTube puts up there, in October and tries to get into Halloween spirit. Like, see, we have horror too. Yeah, fuck off. I Spit on Your Grave is not a movie. It's a fucking porno. It is bullshit. And it has zero redeeming value. Zero. I'm not even going to review it on the channel. It ain't worth it. It's going to be like 5 minutes of me saying, fuck this movie, watch something else. And I refuse to watch the remakes or requels or whatever the fuck they are. Because I don't need to see it. I ain't into it. That ain't my kind of deal. Now, a lot of horror movies do have sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle, sexual assault. Freddy Krueger straddles the line of mostly subtle, but occasionally he crosses over to not subtle. The Halloween movies have subtle hints at sexual assault, a couple of them anyways. I can't think of any others off the top of my head without spoiling a review that's coming. So, sexual assault in and of itself often does make people uncomfortable. Now, then you have a movie like The Hills Have Eyes, where there is a rape scene, and the family of the victim does eventually get revenge on the cannibals that committed the crime. But the rape was just an incidental thing that happened. The real crime is the family getting kidnapped and hunted and murdered one by one. So I hesitate to call The Hills Have Eyes a rape revenge movie. Because the sexual assault in the movie is like not a plot point. It's just gratuitous. It's just a thing that happens, for a second, and then you're stuck with like, oh shit, what the fuck was that? Now, there may or may not be other rape revenge movies out there that I don't know about. And please do not comment them. I will not watch them. At all. I'm not interested in that genre, or subgenre. The standout, and as far as I'm concerned, the literal only one in the history of the genre that matters is the Last House on the Left. All the rest of them can, suck donkey dick for as far as I'm concerned. Which they probably fucking do in the movie anyways. I don't fucking know. I don't want to know. Moving on. I told you I was going to skim over that topic. I tried to give the horror franchises its due, but this next topic might actually be the meat of the podcast. This is when and how to introduce children to horror. This is contentious among horror fans, and it ultimately comes down to the individual parent or guardian of the children, the responsible party, or, the uncle, the cousin, or whoever, the irresponsible family member that's going to get them into horror without their parents knowing. So, you can do that too. I'm not going to stop you. I was the irresponsible, um, not parent who would occasionally be led to babysit my sister's kids. And oops, we're watching Friday the 13th. Cover your eyes when I say cover your eyes. Yeah, they ratted me out, the little shits. But whatever, it was fun. It wasn't the murder that made the kid uncomfortable. It was the nudity, which, it's respectable. A 9-year-old shouldn't be watching a girl take her shirt off. I mean, I did when I was 9, and I was like, hey, boobs, I want some of those. And then I got on estrogen, and now I got boobs. So, yay, boobs. Boobs are awesome. But they're not for everyone. Not everybody wants boobs. So, as far as I can tell, you have two general schools of thought when it comes to how to introduce kids to horror. Well, actually, there's a third, which I'm not a fan of the third one, but I'll touch on it. I don't like the third one at all, in fact. So I'll say don't do the third one. Don't do it at all. But I'll tell you what it is. The first method is the lobster method. It's, turn the heat up just a little bit. Let them watch a kid's movie that's got horror elements. Hocus Pocus, Casper, Beetlejuice, Ghostbusters, whatever. And then slowly, gradually introduce them to scarier movies. Get them into Are You Afraid of the Dark? Goosebumps. Gremlins when the time comes. The Lost Boys. Monster Squad. Things like this. And then when they're ready, up it a little bit more. Show them Twilight Zone. Tales from the Dark Side. The X-Files. And then when they're ready, you can get them into the meat and potatoes. You can get them into, the slashers and the haunted house movies and the serial killers and the good stuff. The zombie flicks, the vampires, whatnot. There's a whole bunch of different methods about going about this. There are articles and videos and blogs and etc. on which movies should you show to kids. So for me, if you're going to go this method, I say do it to take the approach like this. Show them the kids' movies, the actual made-for-kids movies, like Casper and Beetlejuice and Hocus Pocus and Halloween Town and things like this, the Addams Family. These movies that aren't really horror, but they're horror adjacent, but they're fun for kids. And get them used to the concept of dead people being alive, ghosts, zombies, vampires, etc. And then throw in some horror movies that are not made for kids, but are certainly okay for kids, like the Universal Monster movies, the Abbott and Costello Meet the Universal Monster movies. Throw in some stuff like, like I said, Gremlins is okay. Maybe, show them something like Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, or Twilight Zone, the movie. Give them a taste of the good stuff. And slowly up it, and then show them things like Anaconda, show them disaster movies, show them things like Tremors, and, Jurassic Park, Twister, these movies that aren't really proper horror movies, but they, underneath it all, if you look hard enough, they are. Before you upgrade to Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Child's Play, etc., etc. This is the lobster method. You can start them at any age with any age-appropriate media, and then gradually up them as you see they're ready. And using this method, you would communicate with the kids. How did that movie make you feel? Was it too scary? What was scary about it? What did you like about it? What would you like to see more of? What would you like to see less of? And have conversations with them. And for the love of God, make sure that they understand these are just movies. This isn't real. It's make-believe. That's one method. The second method is how I was introduced to horror. This is the sink or swim method. This is where you throw them off the boat into the ocean and you hope they bring home the head of the shark for supper. Because, you know, it's like fucking do or die. Eat or be eaten. Kill or be killed. You know, it's like, hey, you gotta grow up sometime. You know, and 6 years old is old enough to watch fucking Friday the 13th and People Under the Stairs and Child's Play, even though it ain't. But my parents sure thought it was. Thank you for that, Mom and Dad. To me, I feel like this is an iffy method. You run the risk of traumatizing the kid. You also run the risk of giving them nightmares and making them into insomniacs like myself, to where they just spend their whole lives needing drugs in order to sleep, which is going to eventually cost you money in therapy sessions because you're going to fuck them up. But, you know, hey, fucking that's life sometimes. This is a perfectly fine method. This is where you sit down with your 6-year-old and you watch Child's Play and you're like, it's only ketchup. It's only Kool-Aid. Don't worry about it. Stop crying. Why are you crying? Grow up. Be a man. Yeah, that's not the ideal method to do it, but you know, there are parents who do that. I was 5 years old when I watched Silent Night, Deadly Night, and that was, one, how I learned Santa Claus wasn't real, and two, the last time I ever asked Santa Claus for shit. I was like, yeah, I'm over this Christmas thing, thank you very much. What else have you got? Ooh, Halloween, tell me more. So, this method, this is the one where if you're going to use this method, you have to be mindful of your kid's mental maturity. If you've got a 6-year-old that is mature enough to handle Halloween or Friday the 13th, go ahead and show it to them. But please don't show them The Exorcist at 6 years old, no matter how mature they say they are or seem. That is not a movie you show a child. Please and thank you. That's not a movie you show a grown-ass adult that's been through some shit. That's a movie that you got to prepare people for. You know, don't just say, hey, Tommy, you want to see a fun movie? And then put on The Exorcist. You'll never hear from Tommy again. He's going to go crawl under his bed and stop speaking for the rest of his life. So I don't recommend that method. If you're going to use that method, I don't recommend starting with The Exorcist or Human Centipede. Come on. You know, Saw. Fucking Jesus. And whatever you do, don't show a kid People Under the Stairs or The Last House on the Left. You will fuck them up. Now I'm going to talk about the third method just a little bit. And I don't like the third method because I think it's bullshit. The third method is pander to the kids. Protect them from horror. Don't let them even watch horror until they're 18 and out of your house, and then they can do whatever the fuck they want. Don't do this method. Don't be a fucking Baptist minister, fucking parent. Don't do that. That's the worst way to go about it. Because one, the more you tell the kids don't watch something, they're watching it behind your back at their friend's house or whatever, slumber parties, whatever. They're by the time they're 15, they've already seen The Exorcist, and it's old news to them because you told them not to watch Child's Play, and they're like, ha ha, I'll show you. I don't like this method because then the kid is determined to seek out things they shouldn't be watching, and this could lead them down a dark path as well. Now, my parents did this method as well. So here's the thing with my parents. My dad was just a regular guy until I was 12 years old. And then he had his Christian Evangelical Baptist conversion experience. And then he changed overnight. He went from the cool dad that I could sit down and watch Friday the 13th with to the guy that was like, don't even watch fucking, Pokemon because that stuff's satanic. So it was like a hard fucking left turn. And it was like jarring. And then it was like, oh no, you can't even watch Anaconda. You can't even watch Twister. No, I won't even let you watch The Fifth Element because I'm scared that The Fifth Element is some, new age voodoo bullshit. I don't recommend that method at all. So if that's the method you introduce your kids to horror, fuck you, please, and kindly go eat shit. You don't wait until they're adults to introduce them to horror, because you don't wait until they're adults to introduce them to death. 6-year-old Johnny is at grandma's funeral. You're not going to tell Johnny it's okay, she's just asleep. You'll see her again in 40 years. You sit Johnny down and you explain to him, Grandma has gone on to a better place, and unfortunately, people don't live forever. And then whatever your religious beliefs are, or beliefs on the afterlife are, you introduce him or her or whatever to that. And you let them figure it out for themselves. Because kids need to know life is cruel, and they need to know some of the cruelties of life. You protect them from the cruelties, but you do this by teaching them that these cruel things exist and how to avoid them. This is why you teach them stranger danger. A kid is not going to learn stranger danger if you don't tell them the danger part. What's on the other side of the door if you get in the van and eat the sucker? What's going to happen to you? You have to explain to them. Not in graphic details with pictures, please. But you have to tell them, the bad guy's going to do bad things to you. They're probably going to kill you. They're going to touch you where you don't want to be touched. They're going to hurt you in ways you don't want to be hurt. This is why you don't trust strangers. So, yeah, I was in kindergarten when we had the Stranger Danger assembly, and they showed us the video on that little girl that got abducted, and they never found her. And they're like, yeah, and we don't even know what happened to her, but we know bad things happened to her. So, don't answer the door if mom's not home. Get an adult or go to your bedroom and dial 911 and say there's a bad person at the door. Come get them away from me, please. You have to teach kids these things. You don't hide them from it, because the kids you cradle and hide them from, those are the ones that kidnappers get. Those are the ones the bullies target. Because they weren't prepared for it. This is where some dipshit's going to say, if you don't have kids, you have no right to say blah, blah, blah. Look, I was a fucking kid once. So I do have a right to say, because I know what it was like being a kid. I was a kid. And my sisters all have kids, so I do know what it's like to protect a kid and raise a kid and teach a kid how to be a thing. You don't have to have kids to know what's the right or wrong way to raise a kid. And so help me God, if you misquote that verse, spoil the child, spare the rod, or whatever the fuck it is, I will block you off my fucking channel, and I do not want to know you. If you hit your kids, I do not want to fucking know you. That is not parenting, that's child abuse. I want to put that right the fuck out there. You do not hit a kid, ever, under any circumstances. That is never okay. And don't dress it up with words like spanking or, the switch or the paddle or fuck off. You don't hit a fucking kid. Not with a belt, not with your bare hand, certainly not with a fucking piece of wood. God damn it. Fucking monsters. You belong in hell. You are the devil's children. You motherfucking shitwads who hit your kids. I'm of the opinion that sending your kids to Sunday school to learn about the brutalities of the crucifixion as child abuse. But hey, you got a First Amendment right to do what the fuck you want. But you do not have a First Amendment right to hit your kid. So I ran out of steam. I have nothing else to say on this topic. So I'm going to wrap it up with some more housekeeping. So the horror trans renter buy reviews have returned. I just did The Purge and I just did The Babadook. So go watch those. I started a new series called Horror Franchise Rankings. I've done 2 franchises so far. The Nightmare on Elm Street, which is the easiest franchise to rank because I've done it before and it's my favorite fucking film of all time, A Nightmare on Elm Street. So this one was easy to say, oh yeah, number 1 is obvious, and the rest of them is just kind of, well, how do I feel about it today? And then the second one I did was the Scream franchise, which was a little harder to review because I go back and forth on 3 and 4, whether or not I even like them. 6 is all the way at the bottom. Spoilers. I don't like 6. But if you want my reasons, go ahead and watch that video. And I talk about each movie a little bit. Or go back and watch my reviews on the individual films. They're all there except for Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which I have to redo. Because my original Wes Craven's New Nightmare review was like 15 seconds of me screaming into the camera, fuck this movie over and over again. Because I hate Wes Craven's New Nightmare. That's not a very fair review to my audience, so I deleted the video and decided I'll redo it when I get around to it. But it ain't gonna be any goddamn time soon because that movie can fuck off, and I have no interest in talking about it. As you can tell, it's gonna be a rent. You don't need to watch the video. If you want my reasons, the video is coming. But I hate that movie with a fiery fucking passion. It should not exist. And anyone who says it's their favorite Nightmare on Elm Street is dead to me. You are not a human being. You are a ghoul in human skin. You probably came from Hades. I don't want to know you. That is not a real movie. Fuck that movie. I hate it. Obviously, I'm kidding a little bit. You're allowed to like New Nightmare if you like it. But for the love of God, don't tell me it's your favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie because it can't be. Because if you're saying that, you either didn't watch the others, or you don't know good movies. I don't know. Whatever. Or fuck, you're probably one of those pretentious dudes who's all like, I don't know, it's elevated horror. Don't ever call a movie elevated horror in front of me. Oh my God, I hate that term. I won't go so far as to say I hate the people that use that term, but I don't have a high opinion of them. Tell you that right now. Fucking hipsters. Yes, hipsters. You dipshit, brain dead motherfuckers that are driving up the price of VHS tapes and fucking vinyl records, and people aren't buying DVDs or CDs anymore because God knows, superior technology is rubbish. Let's go back to the goddamn Stone Age because fucking hipsters have a fucking spider nest in their brain eating their thoughts. Fuck. Fuck you if you're a hipster. Fuck you if you have a vinyl record collection. And fuck you if you buy VHS and not DVD. Fuck you. You can buy VHS and DVD. But if you're one of those dipshits who's like, I prefer VHS because then give me that goddamn pretentious bullshit hipster monologue. Fuck you. I own VHS, but I also own Laserdisc, and I also own DVD, and I also own Blu-ray because I recognize they all have their merits. But for the love of God, buy CDs to listen to, and then buy vinyl records to put on the shelf and brag about the artwork because that's the only good thing about the vinyl record. God damn it. Don't ever sit here and talk to me about fucking vinyl has a warmer sound. No, it don't. That's literally fucking background noise that was captured in the production process of the record. It's not warmth. It's shit that don't belong there. Alright, that's the end of my rant.